no idea if Mr. Blobby is meant to be a fun children's character or if he's something straight out of a horror film. From James Bond to Peppa Pig, Americans have heard of quite a few British cultural icons, but you might be surprised at the ones that Americans have never heard of. And this has meant, as an American living in the UK for the past 10 years, actually it's been more than 10 years, but I haven't updated my intro. How many years has it been now? 2012 into 2025. 13 years. I've been here for 13 years and I still am confused at a lot of these references. And I also thought I could do this video in two ways. I could express to you how much I really haven't heard of these things and generally make a fool out of myself on the internet, or I could research, I could go to my trusty Wikipedia and YouTube sources to present to you all that I've learned about these British characters. And I thought, why don't we just go into this blind and you can see how much I really do not know about the UK still. So number one on my list of British characters, again, I'm using the term cultural icons very loosely. You'll see later as we get into the list, but the first British cultural icon I had never heard of was Postman Pat. To this day, I'm not sure I've seen an episode of Postman Pat, but I do for some reason know the jingle, which goes something like Postman Pat and his black and white cat. And I was very surprised recently actually, because a Postman Pat play toy thing for kids just went up in a place that I go to a lot, and I was really surprised that Postman Pat was still a character that kids knew, because I had the impression that Postman Pat was more of not an older generation thing, but not necessarily that it was a current character that kids would know, but they did. So Postman Pat is number one on my list. He looks very friendly. His cat looks friendly. I think Postman Pat is meant to be a really nice character. He just clearly doesn't deliver across the ocean because we've never heard of him in America. Next on my list, and I know that this isn't originally British, but definitely this is something that I feel like every Brit knows, the Moomins. I'm still not entirely sure what a Moomin is. They sort of look like hippos to me. So is it a family of hippos, or is it a random made up kind of creature, like an alien kind of creature? I think the only thing I know about Moomins, and this could be a completely false statement, but do they live underground? Is that a Moomin thing? Like I said, Moomins have not crossed the pond. So I really have no idea what they are. They definitely seem like some sort of British children's classic, I guess, maybe. Are there books? Is it a TV show? I think it's definitely some sort of television cartoon. I don't know if there's more than that. Moomin movies, movie TV shows. I am Moomin clueless. Next on my list is actually another animated character, and that is Pingu. Pingu is not well known in America, and as far as I'm aware, Pingu doesn't speak, which makes sense because he's a penguin, but he just makes little noises and he has little friends. I think, is Pingu claymation? I think. Possibly. Again, this video is literally just me being wrong about all sorts of British cultural icons, and I can sense my comment section about to explode. I like Pingu, I think he's cute, but Americans won't know what you're talking about and will probably just think that you said the word penguin incorrectly. Next on my list of British cultural icons that I had never heard of, and this is where the term cultural icon gets very loose, but it is something or someone called Mr. Blobby. Mr. Blobby is definitely something mentioned here in jokes and memes, and it all goes way over my head. I have no idea if Mr. Blobby is meant to be a fun children's character or if he's something straight out of a horror film. Where did he come from? What is this character? He seems on his own. Is he lonely? Is he married? I have no cultural context for Mr. Blobby, so this is one I am going to need you to explain in the comments section. Next on my list, and this is a real departure from what we've been talking about, is Guy Fawkes. I know this is kind of a strange British cultural icon. It's strange calling this historic figure an icon, but Guy Fawkes is well known in the UK. November 5th is Guy Fawkes Night, the gunpowder plot, the effigies of Guy Fawkes on Bonfire Night. Americans have zero idea who this is, for good reason. It doesn't really relate to American history. We don't have Bonfire Night or Fireworks Night or Guy Fawkes Night or whatever you call it. So I had never heard of Guy Fawkes until I moved to the UK. Next on my list is Father Ted, and I was relatively careful not to just put random TV shows and stuff on this list because of course there's plenty of TV shows that are not known across the pond, and that goes both ways. But I thought Father Ted is kind of like an icon in and of himself, even though it's part of a TV show. I do know his character is a Catholic priest, and I'm pretty sure the entire concept is that it's a comedy, and he's kind of like a bumbling priest or something like that. Again, this isn't a character that we're exposed to in the US, so if you say Father Ted to an American, they'll most likely have no idea what you're talking about. Another one that people mention often in the UK is David Brent, and they're meaning David Brent from The Office, which is a British sitcom, and Americans will know The Office because we have our American version of The Office, but the characters don't have the same name. So the American Office character is Michael Scott. So Americans will reference Michael Scott a lot in conversation, but have no idea who David Brent is. Next on my list is someone called Banana Man. I have never seen Banana Man. I'm not entirely sure. Is it a comic book character? It's some type of superhero that relates to bananas. I feel like, without having seen it, just knowing the British, I feel like there's going to be some sort of sense of humor in here because he's a superhero based on bananas, but I've never seen it, never heard of it. Americans will have no idea what you're talking about. I just think, again, my guess is going to be that this has something related to British humor because I could not see America having a superhero based on a banana because Americans are all about like Captain America, Batman, Spider-Man, Wonder Woman. Like, the superhero has to have that like classic superhero outfit and powers and all of that. So I don't know what Banana Man's powers are. Probably he's fueled by bananas is my guess, but it's just the most British concept that I could think of when it comes to superheroes. Other British cultural icons that we've never heard of in the US include the Chuckle Brothers. Now, I used to hear the Chuckle Brothers get mentioned when I worked in an office a couple years ago, and somebody there would always bring up the Chuckle Brothers. And so, to the best of my knowledge, they were a comedic duo, I'm pretty sure related to children. So did they do some sort of like slapstick comedy for kids, or some sort of like, who were the ones who did like puppetry for kids? Did they do puppets? My Chuckle Brothers knowledge is and was very low because they didn't cross the pond into American children's living rooms. We really haven't heard of them. Another iconic British duo that I was not aware of is Ant and Dec. And see, this is the problem, you guys, because as much as I can understand like British culture and communication and how it works taking the bins out and different words that mean different things, it's really when it comes to these cultural references that I really let other people into how much I don't know about the UK. And I have to admit now on camera that as I'm thinking about them, I'm struggling to remember if they host a show called Friday Night Takeaway or Saturday Night Takeaway. I think it's Saturday night, but I'm not entirely sure. This is how much I had never heard of them. And now I'm also questioning whether the name of the show is. I know it has something to do with takeaway. And I also just realized that perhaps this is a play on words because Americans don't use the word takeaway. We use the word takeout. So you would get takeout from somewhere, where here you would get takeaway. So it's just occurred to me that possibly the show they host is like their takeaways from like the week / like celebrity culture or whatever, but it's also like you're getting a takeaway on a Saturday / Friday night. I'm unsure. And that's about all I know about Ant and or Dec. Don't know their full names, don't know their last names, don't really know what else they do besides I feel like they just pop up in like various places in British culture. Next on my list is the band Take That. Take That is a very well-known band in the UK, and most Americans have never heard of them. Most Americans have never heard of Robbie Williams. There's another one for you. I will say, having never heard any Take That songs before moving to the UK, there are a couple that I quite like. And here's my thing about Take That. Because I didn't grow up here, I don't actually know if it's cool to like Take That or not. It's kind of like how liking Nickelback is very uncool in America. I don't know if liking Take That is like liking an uncool band, but I do genuinely like some of their songs and have a couple of them on my playlist. So if that makes me uncool, then I guess I'll take that. Okay, this video is going off the rails. My final British cultural icon that most Americans have never heard of is one who actually has now made a name for herself, and that is Mary Berry. And the reason she made my list is because the only reason that Americans know about Mary Berry is because of the Great British Bake Off. And she makes the list because in the UK, she was a very well-known baking icon before British Bake Off. So she's like a celebrity on British Bake Off, where she didn't become a celebrity in America until afterwards. Now that brings me to the end of this video. Comment below and fill me in on some of the gaps that I'm missing so I'll understand these references better the next time someone mentions them. As always, thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.